as we talk about freedom of assembly and petition. I don't have a ton of stuff here because this is pretty straightforward. Well, most of these can get pretty confusing. This one tends to allow us pretty easy understanding of what this one's intending. So when we look at Amendment number 1, the right to peaceably assemble, the amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, a whole bunch of other stuff in the middle that we've talked about already, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So it does not give us the right here to disturb the peace. We have the right to gather, to share our opinions. We have the right to form groups. But the key idea here is peacefully. So we don't have the right to go out and to riot or to block access to public property or in some other way to disturb the peace. And that's where a lot of people get themselves into trouble. When they assemble, they end up getting thrown in jail for disruption of peace, not for their assembly, but it's because they are causing some sort of disturbance. So when people often get arrested or when they do meet together, there's this term here called civil disobedience. And there are times where they get arrested, they're told to disband or they're told to move out of the way because they're blocking a public access, or maybe they're starting to get unruly. But the civil disobedience, oftentimes the protesters are trying to gain greater attention through their arrest and their incarceration to bring attention to their cause, whatever it may be. So again, we bring up the Colin Kaepernick thing here. And when he was playing in the NFL, and he was protesting the national anthem because of the racism that he perceives and the way that the authorities are enforcing some of the, or how they are handling some of the riots that are going on. He has every right to do that, and it would be linked here with the idea of civil disobedience. And he is trying to get publicity for that issue going on in our country. Sadly, a lot of people are talking about whether or not he should be standing or sitting during the national anthem. They're not talking about the heart issue that he's trying to draw people's attention to. But that's why people often allow themselves to get arrested, or they push the envelope just a little bit so that they can gain more attention toward whatever cause it is that they're trying to accomplish. And typically when people do get arrested in these cases, prosecutors are not trying to put them in jail long term. They're not trying to send a massive message to the people. They simply just give them a fine, maybe a couple days in jail, and then they send them home. So under this phrase, the government may regulate the when, where, and how when it comes to assemblies, but they can't regulate the who or the why. So they can't stop you from demonstrating in a public place, on public property. But there could be some places that they don't allow you to assemble. And they could say, you need to take your assembly somewhere else that is not going to infringe on the rights of others or that is going to be disruptive in this location. For instance, you couldn't walk up to the White House and say, I'm going to have a public display here in the Oval Office. So make way, Mr. Secret Service man, and I have every right under the First Amendment to walk in the Oval Office and protest. I'm sorry, but that's not going to work. You're going to be asked to have your protest somewhere else. DC people, those are not people you want to mess with when you're walking the White House, is it? Especially when you walk through that guard dog room. I'm not going to start making accusations there. That's right, it was a chicken. Yeah, so for those of you that didn't go, somebody's asking about the dog, and the Secret Service guy said, it's not a dog, it's a chicken. Because you can't see over the gate where the dog is sniffing people. You can't really see the dog back there, and so he was saying he was a specially trained chicken. Anyway, I am digressing. So, when we're looking at discrimination, and this word is thrown around a lot when it comes to this principle of freedom of assembly. The right to assemble here may also include a discretion as to who can attend the assembly. The question comes up, can we discriminate in club memberships? Are there certain people we can restrict, or we can say we are going to exclude out of this particular meeting? And in 2000, the Boy Scouts took this to the Supreme Court because they were being accused of excluding gay members from the Boy Scouts. And so the court ruled in this case that the discrimination had to be connected to the central message of the organization. So back when this case was brought up, they were allowed to discriminate because of the fact that they were dealing with the Boy Scouts, and that if they were forced to change their admission policy, then it would disrupt their central message of the Boy Scouts. Another example would, and this would be kind of a extreme one, but would you allow a black person to join the KKK? Well, they don't go together. It's not going to happen. There's no court that's going to rule that's going to say that the KKK has to admit somebody of African American descent. You think an atheist would win a lawsuit to join a church? If the church refused, let's just say we've got Faith Church here, let's just say that the church refused to admit an atheist and somebody who is a self-proclaimed and very adamant atheist, said, sorry, we're not going to let you be part of the church membership. Well, are we allowed to discriminate? Well, the court's going to say yes, that they're not, because of the fact that the atheist does not line up with the principles of the essential church membership. The court's going to rule in favor of the church in that case. We see this sometimes with gender equality, where women sue for their right to be part of a certain organization or group. And a lot of times the court, when it comes to gender equality, will rule in favor of the female and will rule in favor of them being able to be a part of that organization. So there's, again, it all goes back here to what is the central message of that organization? And is allowing that person into the organization going to conflict with that central message? Typically with gender issues, it's not going to, whether you're man or woman. But when it comes to like faith, or when it comes to, I use the KKK as an example there as an extreme one, that definitely would. Okay, any questions?